All right. Well, welcome to Amateur Radio Roundtable. This show is about ham radio, amateur radio, shortwave listening, and we want to welcome you to our show tonight. If you're listening out there on world famous WBCQ shortwave on 7490, we'd like to invite you. Send us an email and let us know where you are and how you're hearing the station. We're relatively low power, about 50,000 watts, coming to you from Monticello, Maine right now. Probably a lot of snow up there on the antenna, so we'll see how that goes. But send us an email if you would, tom at w5kub.com. Also, we'd like for you to join our show on Tuesday nights. Our live video show is actually Tuesday nights from 8 at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time at w5kub.com. w5kub.com. We have a chat room. You can chat directly with us there. And that's Tuesday night. But if you're listening on shortwave, this show is actually being broadcast on Thursday afternoons between 5 and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on 7490. So I guess, hey, for all you guys out there, let's see, listening and watching, I guess I should have put that up there. There's WBCQ 7490. Look at that great antenna they got there. And I'm sure that's the kind of the weather they're having right now. Hey, we're on every podcast out there from iNet Radio, Google Play, iTunes. You can find us. I'd like to hear from you guys that just download or just listen to our audio out there. Shoot me an email, tom at w5kub.com. And let's see, what else was there? Oh, okay. We've got a great Facebook group that follows this channel, this show, Amateur Radio Roundtable, but you can find it on Facebook. Just type in W5KUB, and we'll approve your membership almost immediately. And if you will, join that group. It's W5KUB on Facebook. We've got over 14,000 people there. I forgot to tell you, please subscribe there. Hit that subscribe button down here on your video. We'd love to have you hit that, and that helps us out a whole lot there. All right, so we got a lot going on tonight. But half the staff is gone tonight. They're either at ham Christmas parties, government civic meetings, or maybe even jail. I don't know where everybody is tonight. We got Jim with us. We got me. We got our guest tonight, Will, with us from Texas, and I'm looking forward to that segment right there. So let me warn you guys, Jim may duck under the table at any moment. They're starting to drop them in. They're dropping them in close where he is. So let's go out to Jim and see what's going on out there. Hey, Jim, come on in here.
Yeah, it's we're supposed to get lightning. We've had several lightning strikes close. So the antenna is almost all the way down. It's fully nested in another foot or two. And I disconnected the equipment. So disconnected the coax connectors from the transceivers. If it gets to be really bad, I'm going to take the transceivers off the desk and put them in a chair, literally, physically remove them. There are devices called lightning protectors and lightning arresters. Well, I don't know if they would do much in a direct hit.
Probably not. Hey, let me ask you a question here. I mean, we both have done this during a lightning storm out there. I've actually unscrewed the coax. Do you feel a little funny unscrewing that coax during a lightning storm?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I did it very quickly. Yeah, I do. Also, I'm thinking about making it, as silly as it sounds, I'm thinking about making a video about how to screw on a coax connector.
Yeah.
It sounds silly, but a lot of folks do them wrong, and the body of the coax connector is not tight to the SO239. It doesn't hit the indexing. And I found messing with devices like a nano VNA and other things like this gizmo. You can lose a couple of dB, believe it or not, with loose connectors. Also, I found that when there is RF on the transmit audio, you're on single sideband, and there's RF on the audio, it's often a loose coax connector in the scheme of things, which is releasing RF into the radio room, and it's getting into everything. So believe it or not, screw on a coax connector, I'm probably going to do that video. How to screw on a coax connector.
All right. Well, hey, you got a segment in a minute. We're gonna talk real quick in a minute about an amp you built and maybe some spurious or harmonics. We could talk a little about that.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna move. Well, we'll come back to you in just a minute and do that. But let's just say hello to our guest tonight. We got Will Everett, N5 OLA. Now, hey, Will, come on in here. Did you say you're in Mexico or where are you?
I'm down in South Padre Island, Texas,
Okay.
down on the southern tip of, Corpus is on the north end and we are on the south end, down by Brownsville, Texas.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, very good. We are so glad having you tonight. And I'm looking forward to the restoration of the HW100 you're going to show us tonight. And we're going to talk a little about it and a little about your ham radio background there. We'll get around to that in just a few minutes. Let's just jump on back over to Jim here real quick. And Jim, let's talk a little about what you put together tonight. What do you got there?
I forgot.
Yeah, we're going to talk about your amplifier and
Yeah, that's it.
spurious radiation and
3 videos at one time. Which one did I upload?
Yeah.
And I'm asking what people, other ham radio operators think. I've used the Tiny SA. I built a little sampler, which is it's in the video. It's in a box like this, and there's a core in there, and put some turns on it, just whatever I could fit. And the center conductor goes through that. So it's like you'd see in a watt meter. And then the one end of that connects to a large bird dummy load. Not a heathkit, Will. I see a little bit of lightning in the distance. And then I use 2 15 dB attenuators in the line into the Tiny SA. And so I had the Tiny SA sweep from like 3.5 to 60 megahertz. I wanted to see what the second harmonic looked like, if there was one, and how strong was it on my amplifiers. So that's what the video is about. How strong is that second harmonic? And could that be a problem?
Okay, now this is a homebrew amplifier you built using a Russian tube, right?
Yep. Yeah,
tell us a little about the power in the tube here, real quick.
Maybe next meeting I'll show you the tube. It has about a 4-inch diameter heat sink, and that comes off the top of the tube. It bolts into place. And the tube has about 2,000 watts of plate dissipation.
Gee.
So it's sorry. Was there a question there?
No.
Okay. It has it can easily deliver 1,500 watts output with 100 watts of drive or so. And I built the amplifier around that. It's the chimney is a glass chimney you might see on a lantern, and that just happens to fit over perfectly. There's a blower. The tube actually bolts to the chassis.
Wow.
It's grounded grid, and there's a grid ring, and you bolt that to the chassis. And it takes 12 filaments, 12 volts at 3 amps. So not a big filament, and it fluoresces at high power.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna try to put the video on, and
okay.
It's less than 2 minutes, and we'll just take a look at it.
It's maybe a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Let's see if I can cue it up here and get it to play correctly. Let's see. Let me click a couple.
That looks like me.
Yeah. Let me see if I can click a couple buttons here. That might do it right there. Okay. Here we go. Get some audio on it.
Your Ham Radio Elmer here on YouTube. Welcome to my radio room in Rocklin, California. Some guys in restoring equipment put them through the dishwasher. I didn't do that with my linear amplifier that I built from parts and pieces, parts of a Drake amplifier and other things. What I did do recently is I did a test of it with a spectrum analyzer, just a single tone at this point, and looked at the second harmonic. And I'd like to show you the results of that test. It was pretty simple to do. I'll describe how I did it. Results, I'm not sure if it's clean enough. Let me know what you think. So first I'll show you how I did the sample, and then I'll talk about the results. So here we go. So here's how I sample the RF, and it's really simple. I took a box, put SO239s on both ends, as I've used it for a number of things. There's a core in here, and the center connector goes through the core. I put about 10 turns of number 18 wire out to a BNC connector, and then this BNC connector connects to the other end of this this end connector goes to a bird dummy load. So I wasn't putting out any signal onto any band, just into here. And the dummy load is capable of easily 1500 watts. Then there were two of these attenuators, each is 15 dB. They connect to the SMA, and I was able to adjust the dB of attenuation at this device on screen. So let's take a look at that and tell me what you think. Is it clean enough? Here we go. I'm going to run the video now. It's only a minute and a half long. Okay, so here's the first time I transmitted a carrier. It was trying to measure this between the peak and the second harmonic, about 35.5 dB, as near as I could figure looking at the screen. So that equals about 0.4 of a watt output on 10 meters, the second harmonic. So I did the test again, retuned the amp a little bit to see if it would make a difference. And this time, the difference between the peak and the second harmonic was about 35 dB. So at minus 35 dB and a 1500 watt transmitted signal, that's roughly about a half a watt. The calculation ends up being 0.47 watts, but about half a watt. So 1500 watts down 35 dB is about half a watt on 10 meters. So did some more fiddling to see if I could improve it, and here's the next test. Okay, the peak was plus a dB and a half, and the second harmonic was 32.5 dB down. So round numbers, about 34 dB reduction in the second harmonic, and that equals about 0.6 of a watt. So I didn't do a very good job reducing the harmonic content by retuning the amp. So I did it one more time, and here are the results from the next test. All right, so the last test, the difference between the peak and the reduction was about 34 dB. And again, that works out to about half a watt. At 1500 watts output, the second harmonic is about half a watt at 10 meters. So what do you think? Is minus 35 dB enough? If you haven't subscribed, please do that. Also, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Put your comment below. I'll be reading through them. 73 from W6LG.
All right, well, okay. So I didn't see a lot of difference between your tests there.
No.
You know, we were talking about, I've never really thought much, 60 years of ham radio, I never really thought much about how much attenuation I guess the FCC standard is. As I mentioned earlier, I looked up on a website, and someone on a website said 43, let's see, they said it should be 43 dB down on HF, 60 dB down on VHF. Now, I don't know if that is a FCC rule or if somebody just threw that out there, but you're close at 35. You're very close there. So I think you'll be okie dokie there. Hey guys, if you will, go to Jim's YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and you can go to W6LG and you can comment there, or you can comment. I think on our YouTube comment page there if you want to. Again, go visit Jim's page there. He's got a lot of great stuff out there. Um, well, Jim, I'd be interested to see that chimney and stuff you got on there. I haven't thought about it, but a chimney looks like the old-fashioned oil lamps. Is that what you use? A chimney from something
Yeah.
like that?
What's the real common brand of camping lantern?
Coleman, maybe a Coleman
Coleman,
lantern.
that's what it
Yeah,
is. So a particular Coleman was a perfect fit. And so I used a Coleman lantern
yeah,
because the heat sink is about 3 inches tall, about 4 inches in diameter. And it's copper, solid copper. Is it copper or brass? It's brass, come to think of it. And it weighs a bunch. It's really heavy. It could be 5 or 6 pounds alone on that thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, and the price on the tube, you could buy them for $150.
Well, that's not bad here.
Yeah.
There's a comment here in the chat room tonight. Mark P, KE8HIW, said, wouldn't the antenna help attenuate the out-of-band harmonics? And it will. If you've got a resonant antenna up there, that's definitely going to help reduce your harmonic transmission there. So
Yeah, and to further
that's good.
explain, I have a manual antenna tuner with a relatively high Q, I thought. And then it goes to a 3-element monoband Yagi. So there's no
Yeah,
10-meter element on that. I think because of that last comment, it might be a good idea to set up a receiver and see how strong it is, and see if I can measure that too. So anyway, interesting stuff for me.
yeah, cool. Well, we'll see how it works out. We'll see what the comments are there. Well, very good there. Hey, I know you're getting a lot of lightning there. I don't know if I haven't. You got a camera up there. Have you had any more close calls?
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah, and it got
been
really windy for a
yeah.
few minutes. So
Okay.
um,
Well, take it easy
yeah,
there, and make sure you get your stuff disconnected.
yeah. It's what I do is disconnect the coax. If it gets really close, I'll physically remove the equipment. Yeah.
And as I've told people on here before, even my power, AC power, is disconnected through a double knife switch to my stuff because I've been hit before where it comes into power lines, and that can be just about as bad as coming in through the antenna.
I've been hit twice that way,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
on Wolf Mountain, and the lightning goes where it wants to go. So we lost a TV set here, and it ruined the electrical panel. I had to replace the main panel.
yeah. It came in my AC, and also I think it went out that I had a phone patch on there. We'll never have another phone patch on. Of course, we never need a phone patch nowadays, do we? So that's kind of obsolete. So just take care and disconnect
Yeah,
everything, and you'll be okie
I'll
dokie
bet
there.
Will has a phone patch.
I bet he has a Heath phone patch, Heathkit phone
You think
patch.
so?
Yeah,
Does it look like a lunchbox
I
kind of
don't know.
thing?
Anyway,
The handle on the
let's.
top?
Hey, Will, are you got a Heathkit phone patch here?
I bet I've got 4 or 5 of them lying around
Do you?
somewhere.
I want to see something.
I only had a
Man,
landline.
you know, I thought, you know what? I had a Heathkit phone patch, and I think I put it on eBay here this year.
Hmm.
Got rid of it. Yep. I figured there's some collector out there that was wanting a Heathkit phone patch, and somebody like you, look at all that stuff behind you there, all those Heathkits and
Yeah,
different things, man.
no green.
Yeah. All right. So let's do this. Well, let's just talk a minute here with you, Will. And hey, how do you get into ham radio, man? What led you that way?
When I was 12 years old, I went up to Nebraska to see my grandpa, and he was a World War II radio guy. His whole basement was just full of radios, and he was he was big on Heathkits. And the the one rig that I was not to touch was the HW101 because that was his pride and joy.
Yeah.
And I got my ticket when I was 13, and I wanted a 101 badly. At that time, this would have been, by the time I got my license, this would have been around the mid 80s. and the 101 was no longer in production. And by then, Heathkit had switched over to more solid state gear. Little did I know that when I bought an HW 5400 transceiver, that was the last transceiver Heathkit would put out,
Hmm.
uh, with the exception of the SS 9000, which I think only 200 of them sold. But um, yeah, I got into it through my grandpa. A lot of people did, I think. And as soon as I could, I was buying kits and building them because, frankly, with my McDonald's paycheck, that's about all I could afford. Um, so, and then I got out of radio for about 32 years. And it was only 3 years ago that I just kind of woke up like Rip Van Winkle
Hmm.
just to see what's going on in ham radio these days. I've been out of the loop, and my God, it's all so high tech now. And
Yeah.
watching Jim go through, his stuff, it's like, wow, everything is just so state of the art now. And so that kind of gave me a sort of rebound to the old vintage stuff because I know that a lot of people still like the old tube radios, but there are fewer and fewer people around who can fix them. And so what I wanted to do is figure out how I could be like my grandpa and raise the hood on one of these things and work on them because they were made for people to be able to work on without advanced degrees in electronics.
Hmm.
You got to know a little bit and you got to have some test equipment, but you can get by with a pretty rudimentary level of electronics and common sense.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think when we built the thing, what all you needed was a voltmeter, I think, when you built it, right?
yeah,
That to
you
line
could
it. Yeah.
all the better if you had a scope, but a
Yeah.
voltmeter and an RF probe will get you where you need to go. And
Yeah.
a lot of times when I'm working on these things, I try to use that old technology. I've got a vacuum tube voltmeter with an RF probe on it, and
Yeah.
uh, if I need to use the scope, I will. But I like to use the old RF probes. It gets the job done.
Yeah. Well, the 100, and I know you do mostly the 101s, and we've got a video we're going to show in a minute where you're doing a 100. That was, I think it was the first 100 you did, and
Yeah.
there's not really much, hardly any difference between a 100 and 101. The 100, I guess, was the first one that came out. I was in the Air Force in about 1969, I guess. I was telling you guys before the show started that that radio came on. I saw it advertised $249.95 for the radio, and it was sideband had just been coming out, and I was on AM for years before that, and all the sidebanders were supposed to stay above. I forget what it was. It's been 60 years, but I can still remember hearing people say they calling them slop buckets and telling them to go up above 3,800 or wherever they belong. I remember that. But hey, sideband was the way things went, and I wanted a sideband rig. I got a $250 pay raise in the Air Force one year, and I said I'm gonna buy a $250 sideband rig, and I put that thing together, and I used that thing for many years. I homebrewed the power supply. I used it for many years. I even shipped it overseas and used it in Korea as HL9KT. And then, I don't know, 20, 30 years later, I sold that HW100. I sold it for $250 and I only paid $250 for it. So it held its value just really good. And mine is nowhere in shape like the ones you're going to show that when you refurbish one. So, uh, how many have you been refurbishing? How many heath kits have you refurbished? And tell us a little about that part.
Well, like you said, I typically restore the HW101. That's my rig of choice. It's the one I know. I've got an SB101 here, which is very similar to the HW101. It just has a different layout on the front panel, but the boards are pretty much the same.
Hmm.
Um, I'll also restore the HW16. I've got a few up there that are waiting to be restored. Um, but I try to, I don't know, rather than know a little bit about a lot of rigs, I like to cultivate a little mastery on just a few rigs.
Hmm.
But I'll tell you what, there's a lot to know, and I'm still learning. It's kind of like you start building a house while you're still in studying architecture. It's like I don't have the patience to just learn all the theory. I want to get in there and do it. But a lot of times I hit dead ends because, these tube rigs, they're very fickle beasts. And, there's thankfully there are Facebook groups and there's a Yahoo IO group that I'm a member of. And there's some very, very smart people on there who are very, very helpful. And without them, I wouldn't know my ass from apple butter if it wasn't from them. But they get me where I need to go. And thankfully, I've done about, I don't know, 30 HW101s so far and
Mm.
about half a dozen of the HW16s and a few of these SB101s. And I've started taking in repair jobs. And I always tell people, like, if it's a basket case, you better find somebody else. But,
Huh.
if you need some basic repairs, I can probably do it.
Yeah, yeah,
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, what's your attraction to Heath?
You know,
And I don't mean me. I mean Heathkit. Yeah.
I think most people are drawn to the rigs that they used in their novice days when they were teenagers. And I am drawn to them, I think, in large part because if I had my way when I was a teenager, I would have had some time with grandpa so he could teach me the stuff that I'm
Yeah.
still trying to learn now. So for me, there's a lot of nostalgia built into it. And also there's a spirit of service because a lot of guys in their 60s and 70s want to sell the Icom 7300 and get them the rig that they used when they were young. But when you pick them up on eBay, they're horrible. They're a mess. And who's going to fix it for you? So I'm trying to be that guy.
Are you able to get parts?
Yeah. Well, you acquire parts rigs and
Mhm.
you cannibalize them and use them I hate tearing up a rig though. I do not like
Yeah.
creating a parts rig, so I will sometimes go to Hamfest and stuff and just buy a cheap old rig. If it looks like it's in really, really bad shape, it'll become my cadaver rig. But
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But that what I'm able to do now, and I'm not able to do a whole lot, but what I can do, I can only do because of social media and the rise of the internet, because I have all these online Elmers from all over the country that help me. And back in the 80s when I was doing grandpa was in Nebraska, I'm in Texas. There's nobody around to help me. So I can't do anything except, read magazines or um, find somebody locally who might want to help me. But I didn't have access to that. Now with technology, we have that access. And so in just 3 years, I've been able to climb that learning curve.
That's an interesting comment because where I grew up, there were hams everywhere. Go over one street, there was a ham. Go over two or three more streets, there was another ham. And they were all kind to me. They were all helpful. So I had the benefit of that, and one guy in particular. Uh, but it isn't always possible today to do that. You may not live in an area, like you said, where there's not many hams. So yeah, uh, guys like me doing YouTube videos maybe can help out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I grew up in my little town. So I got my license at 16. Actually, I found one ham. We had one ham in town, and that was it.
when did you get your license?
When? 1964.
Oh, you said 16, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
At 16.
Awesome.
Not 1916. That would,
Yeah.
Okay.
boy,
I was also
1916. That'd make me 107 years old or something, wouldn't it?
mine was
But
also
I'm close.
64. Tom and I
Yeah.
were licensed almost exactly at the same time.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, I had one ham there, and he was a general, and boy, he taught me a lot of stuff. He would get these pole pig transformers, the transformers on the pole.
Oh
He'd
yeah.
take those and he'd take the inside out and he'd set it on the floor there, and he'd have 5,000 volts or 7,000 volts running around there, and I think he had 9 kids running around in the house. Man, but they all survived it. Let me tell you. All right, look. Hey, let's look at Will's video here. I'm really want to look at it. This brings back old memories of building this HW100 and seeing all the parts in there, and I can remember nearly every part in there. So this is going to be
before you
cool. What was
before you
that?
show that, I want to make one comment.
Yeah.
That video, I think one of the most controversial parts is the sink scrub, which uh, some people just they can't stand to see a radio in the sink with soap on it and you're scrubbing it. I will say that we still have Heathkit engineers out there who are making YouTube videos, and this technique in particular comes from a fellow named Robert Sumption.
Hmm.
I did not originate it, but I got it from his video, and it works.
Well, that scrub must have been around a long time, because even before Heathkit came out, um, my my first 2 meter radio was an old Motorola 2 channel tube taxicab radio. Must have weighed 25 pounds. And it was washed in a dishwasher and dried out. And that's what I used on 2 meters, my first 2 meter rig. And it worked.
Wow.
It looked like a brand new radio, and it must have probably been 20 years old when I got it. Oh well. All right, well, we're going to see this. I mean, oh man, the more I've looked at it, the more I've seen it done. I mean, it seems natural, and it works fine. Some people might say, "What? You're putting water on your radio?" That's a no-no. Well, it's really not a no-no. So let's look at this and see what we've got here. Let me see if I can get it going here for you. And this is Will N5 OLA, and let's see if we can play it here.
Hey, my name's Will, N5OLA, and you're in my shack where all the fun happens and the frustration. Latest candidate for frustration is this HW100. Picked it up a couple years ago at an estate sale. It was pretty dusty. And I don't usually pick up 100s, I usually pick up HW101s. This is sort of the older brother of the 101. It's basically the same radio except for the lack of a CW filter and a different VFO tuning mechanism, and one or two other little incidental circuit differences. But all in all, it's pretty much the same radio. So I'm going to power this up and just see what happens, and then we're going to go through the restoration process step by step, taking enough time to explain what I'm doing so that you, as a restorer, can do likewise. It's not a bad looking radio. These rigs were produced from 1968 to 1970, so we can figure on it being about 55 years old or thereabouts. Of course, the belts are in bad shape, got to be replaced. Everything's dusty. We expect that. Looky there, this rig had some professional attention back in 1985, so that's a good sign. This might be a good candidate for restoration. Let's fire it up and see what happens. That's a good sign. We want that to start creeping back down as it warms up. Come on. Oh, I had the RF gain all the way down. Okay. Hey. Nice. Awesome. let's give it a bath. One last look at all the grunge before we clean it up. Like I said, this is pretty much par for the course. I think this rig's been in a garage. It's got some straw. I've seen these with the coax gnawed by rodents. I mean, it can get really bad. This isn't bad at all. This is the part that's been known to make grown men cry. I got this step from a retired heathkit engineer. This is how he does it. This is how I do it. This is just plain old dish detergent. I'm going to kind of stab it a little bit because I don't know if you can see that kind of mottled look right there. That is some really baked on grunge. You don't want to be so aggressive that you start snapping off your capacitors, but I'm going to go in with a toothbrush into some of those areas with the more resistant grunge, and I will use progressively smaller brushes as I go along, and I'll rinse it. If there's still some grunge on there, I'll go back and do it again. And then same thing on the underside. And I'm going to be careful not to damage this sticker because this is part of the rig's history. It's kind of a historical artifact. Okay, and then in the oven at 170 for 20 minutes. And then I'm going to turn off the oven and let it sit in there for another 20. It's the next day, and here it is. Look at those boards. It's gleaming. Let it spend about 10 hours on my back porch the next day after the oven drying. So I'd say it's ready for the next step. Next step is to check every resistor. I made up these handy cheat sheets from the manual, and I laminated them because I do so damn many of these. What I'll do is just indicate any that are off, and I'll come back later and replace them. I tend to replace any that are more than 15% out of tolerance. That's how I do it. Some people would say 20%. I think 15 is a good. Here's an example. 4.7K tests 6.35K. My math, oh, it's not very good. I'd say that's over 30% off. Let's change it out. And we're done. Got 14 bad resistors throughout the different boards, most of them on the audio board. When we pull them, let's go ahead and pull these paper caps. So now that I've established which ones are bad, I mark them on the X-ray view provided in the manual, and then I pull them. I use a dental pick. Pull it, get it on this side, find the trace on the other side, and by the way, I use a Lazy Susan to flip it around. 20 bucks well spent. Then I find the trace and heat it up, pull it out from the other side. And there it is with the resistor replacements. All those blue and pink ones in there are new. And also, can you see 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 diodes in the balance modulator, those are new too. So there's a lot of work yet to come. I've got to put some belts on here. I've got to put a belt here and align it and put the knobs on and troubleshoot. But at this point, I just want to see if I've got any tragic problems, i.e. things that explode or start to smoke. So I'm going to fire it up and see what happens. And it went out. Okay. So no power getting to the voltage regulator. I would say most of the time the problem is something mechanical, like a bad solder connection. And right here, see on this side how the wire is moving in place? Not good. I'm going to resolder that. So this pink wire, it should be red, but this is an old rig, so it's faded. It's pink, and this is where it comes in from the power supply with 320 odd volts, and it goes up here to the voltage regulator tube, OA2. And guess what? I'm grounded to chassis here, and uh-oh, something's wrong. Or it's shorting. So let's follow the schematic and find out what I did wrong, because it wasn't doing that before. So obviously I screwed up somewhere. Let's see. Okay, here's the problem. I checked all the resistors that I installed, and I looked at this one, and check this out. See where it's shorting to ground? Let's clean that up. I should have caught that before, but I'm gonna fire it up again, and this time I want to see that meter peg out. Beautiful. Come on, that's it. And as it comes down, we should start to get some sound in the speaker. And we do. Well, I've been moving along. I've got the knobs on. I just put it through the alignment process. If you want to align one of these rigs, you got to have a set of alignment tools, which I do sell on my website. And I'm noticing right away one conspicuous problem. There is nothing in lower sideband. So let's check it out. I suspect that it's a bad LSB crystal. It usually is. So I've got my frequency counter hooked up, and I'm gonna put, I've got it, the black pin to ground to chassis and red pin to the center pin of the carrier null pot. Right there. Okay, so in upper sideband or CW, I should have 3396. Let's switch it over to LSB. I should have 3393. Switched it over and it's dead. So I'm going to replace the crystal. This is the Y2 crystal. I know that from checking the manual, and it's really easy to pull out of there. Just happened to have one of these from one of my cadaver rigs. That's Y2. These X-ray views in the manual are just fabulous. Literally 30 seconds to desolder that crystal and pull it out of there. And I'm gonna pop that in right there. And I did it.
Very good, Seth. I got it. Thank you for the call. Have a good evening. QRZ, Whiskey 6 Golf.
November 5, Oscar Lima Alpha.
November 5, Oscar Lima Alpha. Thank you for the call. Another nice signal. 59 plus 20 over the pileup. Name is Nick, November India Charlie Kilo.
Awesome. One thing is bothering the hell out of me. That. And as it happens, I know a guy who sells these insets. And there we go. Man, the details really make a difference. Is the buyer of this rig gonna know that I spent $1 to get that metallic inset on that knob? Probably not, but I know. So it looks good, it works great. But now we gotta do a couple pieces of fine tuning, and that starts with neutralizing the finals. Very important step. And I'm going to do it in a way that's not given in the manual. This is the alternate way. This is given in the heathkits service bulletins. Hopefully I have put a link to this page on the YouTube description, because this is how you do it. Don't forget to install the tube shields like I almost did. 3 tube shields, 1, 2, 3. The next alignment step involving the RF probe is nulling the carrier. This is my ugly little homebrew RF probe. I've got it grounded to the chassis, and I'm just going to remotely clip it to the antenna input I always do this with the radio off because I'm terrified of touching any of that stuff. So, good idea to leave it off. I've got the mic CW level all the way counterclockwise, pre-selector where it needs to be, and the final where it needs to be. Now I'm just going to key the mic and see if I get anything on my meter. Oh yeah. We don't want that. That's the carrier null pot. And then here is a carrier null trimmer to fine tune it. I'm going to start with that one. Made a discovery. I'm turning the null potentiometer back and forth. I'm not getting any change. So this tells me that I got to replace this guy. And that's a very common repair on these old rigs. This pot doesn't stand the test of time at all. This is where that 200 ohm potentiometer mounts to the underside of the modulator board. What I did was I just clipped off the leads, desoldered them, and I'm going to leave that in there because otherwise I've got a big gaping hole. This is electrically the same thing as that, except it's modern. It's a 20 turn 200 ohm potentiometer. I like to mount it with the screw away from that tube. Makes it a lot easier to adjust it. And there it is. Okay, I've reattached the RF probe to the antenna input, and let's try it again. Click. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this. And now we're bringing that carrier oscillation as far down as it will go. Well, that's about it. I'm going to check it out on all bands, make sure it's got full output, and then turn my attention to the cabinet. So the cabinet is salvageable. It's not great, but I think I can clean this up and bang out some of the dents and use a little touch-up paint and start out by just giving it a good bath. I'm going to give this a light sanding, and then I've decided I am going to paint it. Right here is some touch-up paint that I had. It doesn't look good up against this green. However, it's pretty close, and I think I can get away with painting just the top and leaving the bottom, just cleaning the bottom. I don't want to paint the bottom half of the cabinet because that's where the silk screening is, and I hate having to run out the lettering on a label maker. Ugh. So I'm going to lightly sand this and then prime it and paint it. I ended up with a custom matched paint that I actually sell these on my website, n50la.com. This is the Heathkit green. I also sell a paint for the SB line rigs. I've got them in spray paint and also in little touch-up bottles. Well, there's the final product. I really am happy with that. It does have some shiny patches where the old paint was gone. And there's also, you can see where there were gashes in the old paint. Those are still kind of showing up faintly, but you know what? I think that's quite nice. I'm really happy with that. And it's a pretty good match with the bottom part of the chassis. This is the silk screening that I didn't want to lose by having to spray paint this part. And I won't have to. Well, that's it. She's all put back together. She's tuned, aligned, and ready for action.
All right, man, that was exciting, fun, interesting to watch. Man, you did a great job there, Will. Great job.
Thank you.
You know, there were some comments in the chat room, particularly about the carrier null. Someone said that he replaced it with a 20 turn pot, and right after that, you replaced it with a 20 turn pot. You know, so must be a common problem with that radio.
Right.
Yeah. Well, hey man, it looks great. Let's see, you got a website out there, I think. If Hey, do you have some parts, or what do you have on your website in case people are interested in trying to restore a Heath kit? Do you help them any?
Yeah, well, what I try to do is make things available to other restorers. So, for instance, I got some one of my uh, one of my buddies on the Heathkit Facebook group. He got some Heathkit paint custom made by myperfectcolor.com up in Colorado, I think, or somewhere.
Hmm.
And they still had the formula. So I said, "Hey, I'm going to buy 100 cans of this spray paint and give me a bulk discount, and then I'll resell them to other restorers." I don't make a lot on it, but that's not really the point. People want to restore a rig, they don't want to restore the inside and then have a crappy outside. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I try to sell stuff that they need, like alignment tools, things that are kind of hard to find, or you know, I think I'm slowly becoming kind of a one-stop shop for Heathkit restorers. Um,
Well, and the website is n5ola.com.
yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Someone was asking in the chat room, can you do modern radio equipment like that? I'm just trying to think. I wouldn't see why you couldn't. Do you know anything about the new
Yeah,
solid state stuff?
I wouldn't have any reservations scrubbing down a solid state rig at all, as long as it's nice and dry before you power it up. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you put it in an oven. I think you said 140 degrees or something like that. Is that right?
I put it on the lowest setting I have, which is 170.
Oh, okay, okay. So I'm just thinking it's probably nothing in a new. Well, hey, a new modern rig. I don't know. They may use some plastics or stuff now. I don't know if the 170 might be damaging to that or not.
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, I'd hate to throw it in there and the front of the estimator melt off, but maybe 170 is not too awful hot, so yeah. Well,
That's
hey,
that's not all that hot.
oh, it's not? Well, I
No,
guess I
not
guess it
really.
gets that hot out west, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, in Texas they get to 170 degrees.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
On my back porch by the bay, it's in the summertime. I put rigs out there and they are dry by sunset. So, but I do try to give them some time because, down in the coils and stuff, you're going to have some moisture, and you don't want any moisture left at all. But when you fire
Yeah.
that thing,
Well,
Hey,
Don just asked in the chat room, how does the let's see, let's see, he asked about water affecting the IF transformers, or those CAN transformers, and you just answered him almost when he put the question out there. Water does get in there, but when you restore, you don't try purposely to get water inside the coils, but we know
no.
water gets in them, and you got to let it dry, right?
Yeah, and you do want to get them clean because dust gets collected in there. I have literally found mud daubers nests
Mm,
inside those transformers. So you got to clean them out, but they're usually the last things to dry. And back when I first started doing this, when I didn't quite know everything that I should have known, um, I would power them up a little prematurely, and you would know that the transformers were still wet because there would be this crazy crackle.
mm,
But within a few hours, that crackle would go away and it'd be fine. It didn't show up.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you do want to get them really dry before you put them on the air.
Yeah. Did
I
you
have a
have?
question.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks, Tom. What soap do you use to? Is one better than another? You're using a detergent versus like a hand soap or something.
Yeah,
Is that right?
they're just using dish detergent, like Dawn dish soap or something. Um, some people put them in the dishwasher, and I don't do that only because I want to be very specific in um, my brush work. I want to get the brush in there where it needs to go, and once I've got it scrubbed, the dishwasher's kind of redundant because I've already
Yeah.
cleaned it.
Yeah.
If you're not getting in there with a brush and you throw it in the dishwasher, you're not going to be happy with the results because
Hmm.
you
Do you have
really.
a recommendation for the brush? Like
Oh
us?
well, what I do is I start with a big, like a 2-inch paintbrush, and it's got to be kind of soft. You don't want the real stiff bristles. And then from there, I go down to a toothbrush, um, and I'll take just an old toothbrush and bend it like that, and just get it down in between the resistors and things. And then if I've still got a lot of baked on grunge, I'll get an artist paintbrush and just go in there with a really fine tip and just scrub it out. Um, is all that scrubbing necessary for the radio to work? Probably not, but why half do it? You know, why leave all that crap in there?
My other question is potentiometers, um, and I guess switches to some extent too, like band switches and things like that. Are you able to clean them and get them back into service, or especially like a band switch that can be
Yeah.
really hard to replace? What you got there?
Oh, this is just a hardware store contact cleaner. And
Mhm.
that is one of the steps is spraying those wafer switches and getting those contacts clean. It's a really important step. So many things that are not working suddenly start working when you've got clean contacts. Um, as well as the relay contacts.
You got a
So,
question here about rust. What about rust?
well, I I'm gonna be putting a video up in the next few months about the rustiest rig I've ever encountered. Every screw in there was so rusted you couldn't even get a screwdriver in it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Now, the most components don't actually rust. You're not going to find rusty resistors and things unless it's been in like submerged or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
let's talk about resistors and capacitors for just a minute. I saw you testing all the resistors, and I'm sure those weren't high tolerance resistors when they were put in there, and after 30, 40 years, they are going to change. But when you test them in a circuit like that, they're across other circuitry, and that's going to change the resistance value. So to me, it would seem hard to tell if they're really out of tolerance just because they're going to be paralleled across other resistors. So I guess you go for the ones that are off the most. Have you ever gone back and rechecked a replacement one that you thought was off by 30% and it still checked the same?
well, okay, here's the thing. When resistors go bad, they go up in value.
Mm,
And that when typically when they're in circuit, they're going to be below value
yeah,
in concert with the other resistors.
yeah,
They're not going to go above value. So when
that's
you find one that's over 15% above value, then you know like, uh-oh, something's wrong here because it should be pulling below value.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
and
What?
I should have said that in the video because I noticed when I was watching it, like I said 15% off tolerance or something. I should have said above tolerance. But
Yeah.
yeah.
What about capacitors? I didn't notice you really changing any in this case.
Well, the little ceramic capacitors, they're pretty reliable, and the
Hmm.
mica capacitors, they're pretty reliable.
Yeah,
Uh, I will only deal with those if I'm troubleshooting and I find a problem and the schematic points me to a possibly bad ceramic capacitor.
hmm,
I'll pull it out. The only way to really check them is to pull one of the legs out and check them.
yeah,
And um, even when you check them, sometimes they're mischievous. Sometimes they test fine, but they're
yeah,
not.
yeah,
Diodes all the time. They're leaky. It's frustrating sometimes. But
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, hey, it's been really interesting, man. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. I think you'd mentioned you may have to go check on some work that you're having done, and we really appreciate you coming on our show tonight and showing this. I
oh,
think
thank
it,
you very much. I'm
yeah,
really excited to see more people getting into vintage gear, and just I really enjoy keeping those old rigs on the air. So go
yeah,
green.
yeah. And it's my favorite rig, my starter sideband rig. Hey, the show is on YouTube. It's on our YouTube channel, so you can look at it anytime. Tell your friends about it. Just go to W5KUB on YouTube, and they'll see our weekly shows. And the week will be, what is it, 12/19/23 is the date on it. So pass the word around, and man, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you.
And I guess if anybody needs to contact you, you probably have an email on QRZ, right?
Yeah, just go to QRZ.
Okay.
And I do get a lot of people wanting, they're having problems with their rigs and stuff. I'm happy to answer questions if I can.
Yeah. Okay.
Caveat, I'm still learning a lot of this stuff, so I'll do my best.
All right. Well, very good, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Boy, that was interesting there, and I'm glad to see that HW100 come out looking spanking new. Man, oh man. Hey, we got Brett joined us. Hey, Brett, how you doing, man? Come on in here.
Good evening. Yes, I've been talking to my local city council about zoning ordinances. They're not as bad as an HOA most of the time.
So you're involved in trying to get some zoning changed?
Well, I'm trying to keep them from changing zoning in ways that would restrict things, and hopefully I'll be successful at doing it. They passed one of the amendments that I advocated for, so
That's
I
cool.
must have done something right.
That's cool, man. Okay. Well, hey. Oh man, you're not only a co-host on our show here. I guess we're gonna have to list you also as a politician.
Oh boy, heaven forbid. I don't want to be a politician. Even if they stick me on the city council, I don't want to be a politician.
Oh man. Hey, if you get on a city council, man, you can pass all kinds of laws about ham radio. Every home can have a 100-foot tower. You can make it happen, man.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I could at least get a proclamation out recognizing the hams in the area because they do some good stuff.
That's true. All right. Hey, Jim, how's the lightning there? You about got hit a couple times.
It's been going pretty good, and it's getting closer. And Brett, I was a planning commissioner involved in zoning, so
there you go.
Look at there.
Yes.
I guess we have two politicians.
It's tough to restrict something if it's been okay for several years. You can't say, well, you can't have a tower now because we've changed the rules. And if you have a tower up, but meetings like that can be really contentious because there's always somebody who wanted to change zoning, especially if you had a large vacant lot, like 40 acres, and he wants to subdivide it. It may have been zoned for one house. Now he wants to put 50,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And in our case, what happens is, you're right. It's grandfathered in until you apply for a building permit, until you try to do something productive. And then they impose all the new requirements and
as a former building inspector and expert witness in court, I as opposed to the guy recently in the news, the guy paid $1 million. Tell the building department to pound sand.
We're gonna have to put a new title on Jim here, expert.
Well,
look at that.
That's how I made my living for a while.
Yeah.
Expert. I held a broker's license and a general contractor's license and an appraisal license. I was a planning commissioner, a building code board, fire code board.
Oh man.
Never took a class in electronics, unfortunately.
All right. Well, welcome. Glad you could make it, Brett.
Yeah, behind me you can see what I've been up to. I was listening for signals from the ISS. I was hoping to get some slow scan TV from the latest ARIS mission.
Wow.
This is the software that you usually use to receive it. This is the MMSS TV software, and you can see I've got a collection of things that I've already received. But for some reason, I didn't get any images from the ISS this time, and I don't see any on their gallery site. So I'm wondering whether the mission didn't come off.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not been following it.
I was hoping to show them tonight.
All right. Hey, stand by a second. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We got some fun stuff coming up here in just a moment here, guys. Searching for the perfect holiday gift? This holiday season, make your gatherings merrier, your messages clearer, and your connection stronger with Icom. Whether inside the ham shack or on the air in the great outdoors, we have what's at the top of your favorite ham's wish list. From high-powered base stations and mobiles to compact, travel-friendly handhelds and portables, our radios offer features and functions such as spectrum scope and waterfall displays, D-Star, single sideband, CW, RTTY, AM/FM modes, and much more. Icom has a radio that every ham wishes to see under the tree. The ID 5100 AD is innovation and mobility taken to the next level. Designed from user input, the ID 5100 AD offers an intuitive user interface experience with an industry-leading touchscreen display. This radio is one of the most advanced dual-band mobiles on the market today. The ID 52A is a VHF-UHF dual-bander with D-Star and FM dual-mode functions, and it's the first handheld amateur radio with a full-color 2.3-inch color waterfall display. This radio supports conventional FM communications and D-Star, simplex, repeater, regional, and worldwide calls over the D-Star Internet Gateway. For more information on Icom radios, go to www.icomamerica.com. All right, guys, now we are back, and I want to talk to you about something else. I want to talk to you about GMRS. I've got a friend at church, and he kind of wanted, when the grid goes down and everything, he wants to be able to talk to his family, and I tell him that's just about impossible, and he says, well, hey, you ever heard of a Bofang? And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, I've heard of Bofangs. I said, I don't know if you're going to be happy or not. He said, well, he's talking about getting his ham license. And then we said, well, if you get your ham license and you want to talk to your wife or you want to talk to your sons, they all got to get their license. So then that's a kind of a showstopper for him on that. So, thinking, well, GMRS might be the next best solution. It's not great, but GMRS works basically just like a ham radio. It's on 462 megahertz UHF. It's channelized to make it simple. And they do have repeaters. Now, there are not many repeaters around, but you can put your own repeater up if you want to with GMRS. So, I'm telling him, that this kind of stuff is line of sight, guys. And if you really look at line of sight, if you're holding a handy-talkie at 6 feet in the air, line of sight is not very far, just a few miles. Plus, if you got buildings in the way, it's less than that. So, the interesting thing, you see these FRS radios and GMRS radios at Walmart and places, and they say long range, 32 miles and so forth. Well, that's from a mountaintop to a mountaintop. And in fact, I was looking at some information lately, and they're starting to kind of put in the description there, hey, you might can do 20 miles mountaintop to mountaintop, and then they say, oh, you might get 8 miles on the ocean, and then on land you might get 1.5 miles. So they're kind of coming back to reality here. We know that handy talkie is not going to do 30 miles. So anyway, I'm going to get him started with GMRS. Now, GMRS requires a license. They've come down in price. The license used to be $75 for 10 years. The price now is $35 for 10 years, and that includes your entire family. So that's a good match for him, his family, to use it. The fact that it's operating in UHF, and there are some repeaters out there, kind of like ham, it kind of is a better match than nothing, I guess. So, look at here what I've got, guys. I applied for me a GMRS license, and I've got a radio here. I'm going to unbox it real quick. Oh, it's green. It's called Radioddity. I got it from Radioddity. Okay, we're going to unbox it in a minute. But I was having trouble. See, I've been a ham so long. I have an FRN number. FRN, is that right? FRN? Yeah. The FCC gives everybody an FRN number. Well, I've had mine so long, it didn't really have a password or a login with it. Back then they didn't do that. Well, now when you create an account, you got to have a password and login, and then you got to associate that FRN number, your ham FRN number, to your newly created FCC license. So I was having trouble associating it. It wasn't coming in, and I did have a question that you could ask, and it was my mother's maiden name, and the problem I had there was I kept getting a failure because I was capitalizing the name, and I found out later that there was no capital on it. So anyway, I called the FCC. Now here's my experience with the FCC. It was great. I called them. The phone answered pretty quick. I was on hold maybe 45 seconds, and then I got a person. Now, I don't know where that person was, but I got a person. And that person was very helpful. That person told me exactly what I needed to do. She sent me an email with instructions, and I was able to associate my FRN number with my new account. Everything went fine. Then I went to the payment page, and I gave a credit card, and I paid my $35 for my license. So I'm going to have a new call here pretty soon. Something like, I don't know, WX04295 or something like that. That'd be weird. But anyway, on GMRS, you have to give your call letters every 15 minutes. On FRS, I don't think you have to. Now, FRS channels are compatible with GMRS channels. Some of them are. The problem is the FRS. I think you're limited to a half watt or something like that. Half a watt. Where on GMRS, most of the channels are 5 watt limit. But then there are some channels that are 50 watt limits. Now, and those are channels that you can actually put repeaters on. So you can actually put a repeater on GMRS. So let's talk a little about this radio right here, real quick. This is the Radioddity DB25G. It's supposed to be a 25 watt radio, and I've already plugged it in. There's a mic. The cable's kind of, I don't know. It's not real flexible. I don't know what that's made out of, but it'll eventually, I guess, in some heat, maybe it'll stretch out. So there's a GMRS, the microphone. It's pretty straightforward. You got your menu button, your up, down, and a few extra functions on it right there. It comes with a power cable. Now I was surprised. This is the only cable that comes with it, and I was surprised. This is pretty small wire, man. That's not, it's not like I'm used to with a ham mobile rig where a much larger wire. This is probably half the size. I don't know. All right, so here's the radio, and I was surprised about this. This is a mini radio. This radio is supposed to be a 25 watt radio. Now, I didn't put it on dummy load. I put it on an antenna, and I put a bird watt meter on it, and I'm only getting about 16 watts out. Maybe in a bird watt meter I might get more, but that's what it looks like. It's pretty small. The entire thing is a heat sink. It does get hot. I think it says it's going to get hot. All right, so I hooked it up to a dual band antenna. My dual band antenna, covers the 450, 460 range, and this radio's on 462. I didn't hear anything. The nearest repeater to me is probably 15 miles or more away, and either I don't have it set up right or it just won't reach it. I kind of think it won't reach it. When I look at the footprint of that repeater, they say 10-mile range on the repeater, which is pretty short distance. So I know nothing about it. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out all the channels. I've got the manual with it here. The manual is written in Chinese English. Oh man, I need some help here. All right, guys, help me here. Listen closely. I'm going to read a couple paragraphs to you, You can tell me in the chat room what this means. So supposedly this radio has a remote stun and a remote kill and a remote revive. Okay? Stun, kill, and revive. Now, okay, when receiving matched DTMF signals, which is same as pre-programmed remote stun code, transmitting is disabled. It will also alert on the display mode. The radio will restore to work normally only after remote revived. What the heck does that mean? This function is able to select to be or not to be, controlled by a master ID code. This function is not controlled by RX signaling. Remote stun code is programmable by PC software. Now, here's remote kill. When receiving matched DTMF signals, which same as pre-programmed remote kill code, transmitting, receiving, and all activities will be disabled. It will also alert on the display mode. The radio will restore to work normally only after remote revived. This function is able to select to be or not to be, controlled by master ID code. Now here's about the revive. When receiving matched DTMF signals, which is same as the pre-programmed remote revive code, the radio will be revived and restored to work normally. This function is able to select to be or not to be, controlled by master ID code. This function is not controlled by receive signaling. Guys, I don't know, man. I mean, it sounds like English, but it don't make a lot of sense to me. What do you think, Brett? Did you figure all that out?
Sounds like a factory reset to me. Probably restoring the thing to defaults.
I don't think it's the factory. Well, I don't think it's a factory reset. I don't think it's that, but I'm not sure what it is. This, it's interesting. Now, the thing about it, the reason I wanted to go with the GMRS radio, of course, we all know that a lot of people buy like the Baofeng and stuff, Baofeng, whatever it's called, and of course it's not approved to work on GMRS frequencies, although we know we can program it and it will work there. But legally, it's not supposed to work. So that's the reason that I told them let's go with the GMRS radio, because on the GMRS radio, I can receive out of GMRS frequencies. I can receive UHF on here, different frequencies like ham. I can receive the weather, the NOAA radar on here, NOAA weather on here, and so forth. But it's simple that it's channelized for GMRS, like channels 1 through 29 or something like that. So it makes it real simple. Instead of trying to program a frequency for a specific channel, the GMRS already has specific channels that are programmed. So this guy knows nothing about radio, so I'm trying to keep it very simple for him. So I've got me a GMRS here. Let's see what the chat room might have said here. Let's see. Anything got a road? Sounds like Shakespeare's involved. Yeah, I think Shakespeare was involved. There are a lot of to be and not to be in the manual here. So I noticed that myself. Gee, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to get going. We'll see what happens. So GMRS. Do we have any GMRS users in the chat room? That is the question. GMRS users in the chat room. GMRS repeaters have a separate input and output. Yes, they do. They're just like ham. They're 5 megahertz separation. So it'd be 462N. It'd be what is it -5 down. So, and this thing's got tones. You can put tones in it. CTCS tones. It's got other tones I've never heard of. Other standards. I have no idea what they are. Like I could put a tone DO3, whatever DO3 is, man. I don't know. So I'm a newbie when it comes to GMRS. Try to make this work here. You know, it's hard for somebody to, they think they can get on a radio and they can, you know, talk wherever they want to. And it just, signals don't go that far. There is no real good solution for this guy. You know, you get your ham license, get your family get a ham license, but you know, you'd have to use it.
GMRS is sort of like the new B.
Yeah, it is. It is.
The way C used to be licensed, and it requires about as much knowledge of radio, which is good and bad. I can all of my VHF rigs can tune and scan GMRS channels, so sometimes I listen.
Yeah.
A lot of truckers are using it.
You know, a lot of off-road is going this now. You know, your Jeeps and your off-road stuff, your ATVs, they go out in the deserts and the mountains and they use this, and it'd be good for them, you know. It'd be good for that application. So I don't know, guys. Wow. I'm going to try to see if it, you know.
Yes. One important thing, by the way, about GMRS that might motivate you to get the license is that you can do business over it. You're not allowed to do business on ham radio, but if you switch over to GMRS and the other person also has a GMRS license, then you can.
Well, wait a minute. Now, I'm not so sure because when I applied for the license, if it was you could not apply if you were a business. You had to apply as an individual. Maybe you can use it as a business, but you apply as an individual.
Yeah, you apply as an individual. That's true.
Yeah.
But you can do business with someone else who has a GMRS license or who's covered by yours, and your family is covered by your license.
Right.
So that if you hand out radios to your family, they can all use your call sign and they don't have to get licensed separately.
Well, and you know, I guess the neat thing about this, let's say you have this little GMRS radio in your car and you're on a trip and one of your family members joins you. He could run into Walmart and he could buy a cheap $20 FRS radio, you know, the bubble wrap, handy talkie. He could come out and get in the car. He could actually talk to you because I think there are 8 channels or 16 channels that are the same. GMRS and FRS are the same. So, you know, that's an interesting point there, you know. If you don't want to take the test and if you want to get the whole family where they can talk on it, it's probably a good deal, you know.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there are some hams who illegally, well, they're kind of skirting the rules. Who go ahead and unlock their VHF rigs so that they can also get on GMRS channels. That's not legal, but it's not really enforced.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some people will use the same rig for both. Preppers especially seem to do that.
Yeah. Don asked, does the family have to have the same domicile? I kind of think so. It probably makes sense. I mean, you know, this guy I'm helping out, he's like almost 80. His sons are in their 60s, and they have their own family living, you know, a different home. I doubt his sons are going to be included in his license, so he's not counting on that. He said his sons can get their own license, you know. And at $35, that's $3.50 per year is what it costs you. Yeah.
You mentioned preppers.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be of any value to a prepper in most cases? I guess it's a poor sentence. How valuable would it be to somebody who's looking for a prepper type communication, because you're only a couple of miles at 400 megahertz, or maybe 5 miles. If there's no obstruction, if there's trees or houses or other stuff, well, you may only be good for blocks. So if you're trying to get a hold of your wife who's working somewhere,
well, yeah, that's exactly right, and you know, that's the reason that he wants to get into this. He's kind of a prepper in the background. he's afraid, the grid's going to go down. He's afraid that everything in the world's going to stop, and he wants this. And I'm telling him, I said, look, this thing's going to be good for 2 miles. There's not a radio that you can get that you can just pick it up and just talk to your son 30 miles away easily. I mean, even on ham radio we could do it, but we're going to have to try different bands. We're going to have to know the time of day. You're going to have to know the frequency for each to be on. I mean, it's not that easy.
Another thing that seems to come up is when the SH hits the fan. There are a lot of websites dedicated to that, and no offense, but the likelihood of that compared to a tornado, an earthquake, a fire, a flood, and I've been to several of those as a ham radio operator, fires and floods. Those are common and fairly likely in some neighborhoods. So, I'm not going to use that word. Where people, I don't know what to say, where people do dumb things, I think that's less likely than a flood, a fire, an earthquake, a tornado, a hurricane, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Hey, hang on just a sec there, Jim. We've got 2 minutes till we go off for shortwave. I need to make a quick announcement here. You're listening to Amateur Radio Roundtable, a show about ham radio and shortwave. We're glad you're with us tonight. If you're listening on WBCQ on 7490, join us next Tuesday. Join us on our video show Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. on W5KUB.com, or you can hear us on Thursdays, 5 to 7 p.m. on WBCQ 7490, every Tuesday, 7490 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us. Send me an email if you're listening to the show. Send it to tom@W5KUB.com. And I think I got that in before our show goes off. So we're back to talking about a little about prepping and communications, And he asked me, he says, well, what do you think about satellite phones? Should we get satellite phones? And I said, man, you get you a satellite phone, it's going to be expensive. You're going to have to pay a monthly fee for it. And I said, hey, you get an EMP attack over the United States, it's probably going to take all the satellites out anyway. So, why have a satellite phone? So I don't know.
In a true dire emergency, we have no idea what's going to work and what's not going to work. It's just good to be proficient at everything. And even then, your immediate concern may not be communicating with somebody far away, so it may not help you anyway.
Well, that's true. Since I guess we've never really had an EMP, I'm not sure exactly how bad it will be. I'm sure it will be bad. But to what extent, I don't know. Supposedly it's going to take out all the computers in all the cars. So if you get a car, and my friend, my kind of prepper friend, he knew this. He says, yeah, if the car is after 1984, it will take it out. So, okay, based on that information, if you want your car to run, it's got to be 1983 or newer or older for that car to run after an EMP, guys. Just think about that.
You need to have an HW101 on the inside.
That's true. That's true. There will be.
That'll work.
There will be that. Yeah.
But the result of that kind of thing happening would be incredible because, for example, I have an oxygen machine, which I'm going to go get on as soon as I get through here. It wouldn't function because it's computer run. Everything that we have or touch or look at, these cameras that I'm using, they'd all be destroyed.
We can't assume that. The EMP is overrated. The destructiveness of it is overrated.
I think it is. I think it is. But I think it'd be very severe and very bad. But I don't think it's going to wipe the entire United States out. I think you'll have pockets of places where things will be okay. There may be people behind a mountain that it doesn't even hit.
Unless they do several, I don't want to go there. But I was just thinking, okay, if there are lots of EMPs at the same time, if a different, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not going to take out all of your electronics. It will probably take out random pieces of gear that happen to be on at the time, especially things with antennas on them. But there's no real way of telling.
It'll probably, you know what? That's a good point. It'll probably be like lightning hitting your power lines and your phone line and your antennas at the same time.
Brett, do you think if you shorted the input to a transceiver that, and if there was something like that, that it might be saved from total destruction because you shorted the input? What do you think?
It might, or the surge might come up the power line and get it anyway. It is really
Yeah.
hard to tell. I do know that I have on my HF radios, I have surge protectors I showed a couple of weeks ago, which actually have EMP in the part number and are supposed to be able to protect against EMP of some intensity.
Those
Well,
are metal
Wow.
oxide varistors or MOVs or
they are combinations of neon tubes and capacitors and inductors.
okay.
Hmm.
Will they really work? I don't know. They're making the claim, and let's hope we never find out. But again, the most important thing is just to be generally resourceful, and
Yeah.
that I think it's not a bad idea to have your HF radio and your VHF ham radio and your GMRS radio if you're worried about that sort of thing. It certainly can't hurt.
No. All right. Well, guys,
All right.
it's about time. We're gonna end the show here. Thanks everybody for being with us tonight.
I'm getting EMP, so I'm going to go crawl underneath the desk.
Yeah. All right. Go take care of yourself, Bear. Good night to everybody out there. Thanks for watching tonight. We really appreciate you being with us. And yeah, Don says keep some firewood for smoke signals. That may be what we have to go to. Smoke signals there. 73, good night to everybody, and we'll, hey, by the way, no show next Tuesday or the next. December 26th, no show. January 2nd, no show. But we'll be back January 9th. Now, I may try to put some rerun or something on the next 2 weeks and just play it, but we will not have a live show the next 2 weeks. So go be with your family, be with them on Christmas, have a good time for New Year's, and we'll see you in the new year. Good night, everybody.
7-3.